Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Aaliya's for another episode of The Banyan. Take it away.
Let's begin by giving a round of applause to this gentleman with the microphone, Samir Bayham, an audio wizard who makes this happen. I'd like to extend the round of applause to one of the most special guests I've had since I started this podcast, Naila Al Hares. A round of applause to Naila. This podcast is made possible by the generosity of listeners and viewers like you. Kindly consider a contribution through Patreon or PayPal. Links are in the details box. Any amount is appreciated. And follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The handle, The Beirut Banyan. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And to stay updated with video releases, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. I'm Rani Shatar, and this is The Beirut Banyan. I've done this podcast for about 6 years. I've recorded, I think, up to 500 episodes or more. I'm rarely nervous, and tonight I am nervous because this is a special occasion for me. Just to give you a background story, I met Naila by accident. I think 10 days ago, maybe, at Calais in a cafe in Mar Mkhair. I walked into the cafe and I thought the staff was in trouble because there was a woman almost lecturing the staff, and I thought, oh, they're all going to get fired. It turned out, no, she was giving a sign language instruction, a sign language course at the cafe, and it took me a second to really see what was happening, and I stepped away just to observe. It caught me off guard. And I waited for Naila to finish. I waited patiently, and she introduced herself, and I asked her all the questions I'm sure she did not want to hear after giving a course, and she was very generous to say yes, she was willing to join the podcast tonight. It's extra special because Naila's parents are in the audience as well. If you could just wave your hands, yes, your mother and father. I have to admit, it takes time for me to tear up when I see videos online. I watched Naila's TEDx at LAU, and she introduces both of you in the video. It is heartwarming. It's emotional. And I almost teared up tonight when I met you both in person. It's a beautiful story. Thankfully, Naila told me a bit about her own personal story before joining tonight. But I think it goes without saying, this country is magical because of women like her. You should be very proud of your daughter. And that's my mom. She's not proud of me. No, I'm joking. Whatever you say, we'll keep it in private. No, I think whatever she's... Well, I can hear you. Thanks. I appreciate that. So, I'd like to jump into the wider role of an interpreter like Naila in Lebanon today. And to be honest...
Sorry, can you repeat? Because I did not catch this, so I can interpret for them. Yeah.
I'd like to jump in to the wider role of what Naila does, not just for a living, but she does from her heart, which is she gives courses on sign language to cafes. And this is passion. This is more than a profession. And she's also a sign language interpreter. But just really the background and the backstory of Naila's journey and why she's here tonight, and really the basics of sign language, which we'll get into a bit later. But I'd like to start with the personal journey. I think it's easy to suggest that it's just your parents that are hearing impaired, and therefore you became an instructor, but I don't think that's the story. I'm going to guess there's more to it than that. So what took you to sign language?
So you're asking me why I teach sign language?
Yeah. It's nice to hear your voice.
Thank you. I think it's very hard to pinpoint where my story or my journey began. يعني مع لغة الإشارة. Of course, يعني ماما وبابا, both of them are deaf, and I learned to speak sign language before I began, voicing words. But mainly, يعني, all of my friends, they constantly ask me, can you teach me? Can you teach me? And I always said, no, I'm not a teacher. But this one time I was in a coffee shop, which is Calais in Ras Beirut. And I had a friend who had his laptop and he was working. And then I opened a video call with a deaf friend, and I was talking to him in sign language, and I was just moving my hands. So when I finished, I put my phone down. So my friend closes his laptop, and he's like, can you teach me sign language? I'm like, okay, I'll teach you a few signs, because he was traveling outside Lebanon. So I thought, no, fine, like I'll teach him a word or two. But then I saw the staff of the coffee shop, they came, and all of a sudden there's a group of like 5 or 6 people standing, and I'm teaching them. And I realized, oh my God, I enjoyed it. I liked teaching. And they caught the words in sign language very quickly. So one of them asked me if I'd want to teach in the coffee shop. And I thought, sure, why not? Okay. So I got in touch with the owner of the coffee shop, and she directly said yes. And this is how it started. After that, I got this crazy idea, but then you want me to tell you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So it started in one coffee shop, but then I was thinking, if I really like teaching sign language. And then I thought, if I want to teach more, where do I go? I don't have a space to teach. But then I thought, deaf people always tell me, we don't have a location to like meet, to speak in sign language, to share ideas. And I thought it's such a shame. Like in Beirut, we have a lot of coffee shops. And if there's only one staff member who knows sign language, deaf people would be excited to come back. And I had this idea, okay, I'm going to invade all of the coffee shops in Beirut and teach sign language there. And they're going to offer me the space. I'm going to teach their staff. And when I'm done with this course, I'll move to another coffee shop. And my vision in the future is to, or the goal is to have Beirut much more inclusive, just because the coffee shops have people in them who speak sign language.
I have to say, I am really impressed that you're able to do 2 things at once. You're able to communicate what you're saying and also express through sign language together. I've never seen anyone master both and the same talent. You're a good teacher, and clearly you have expressive capabilities that come out naturally. And I'm going to just assume this comes from your childhood growing up and a family that both sides are hearing impaired. The decision for you to take this in a way into a personal mission, did you find that your parents or the deaf community at large was having difficulty with day-to-day activities? Because you chose a cafe, or let's say cafes, to make this it's almost a point cafes would include or re-invite or make more hospitable to a deaf community. Did you see that yourself growing up, that your parents did not feel comfortable going out, that you wanted someone like them to have that easy access?
I have many stories of these moments when I felt like deaf people are not fully included, and I feel like it's such a shame. It's so bad because these people and like all of the deaf community in Lebanon, they have so many talents and a lot of things to share and to teach for the world. And so I have these stories of moments when a deaf person would feel a little bit of discrimination or maybe frustration because the hearing person would feel a little bit, like, I don't know what to do. How can I talk to them? And I see these two people who really, they want to communicate, but they don't know how. So I saw that, deaf people, they find it very difficult to maneuver life in Lebanon when it comes to like encountering hearing people. But also, hearing people feel very frustrated and why I cannot communicate. What's that? It's very frustrating for both of them. So for me, making this decision, growing up, I saw that. So I'll go back. Sorry, because this is taking me time because I'm interpreting, but trying to catch my ideas as well.
Take as much time as you'd need. I've never seen anyone be able to do two things at once like this. So you have all the time you need.
Thank you.
Just not until tomorrow morning.
No, not until tomorrow morning. We'll do it now.
Someone's clapping that? Thank you. Thanks. Everyone wants to go home. No, I'm joking.
Okay, I'll make it fast. I grew up inside a family with deaf parents. I never in my life felt like deaf people are different. I thought it's a normal thing, Deaf people just have a different way of communicating. And it was until this one thing happened that I felt, oh, wow, like hearing people see the community of the deaf people very differently. This is a world and this is a world. And I'm standing in between. I was with my mom. We were going to a very big mall, or I don't know what, and they had carpets. So my mom, she walked there. She saw a beautiful carpet, and she asked this guy, how much is it for? She did not use her hands. She just spoke. And this guy looked at her, and he replied in English. And I was really young. I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I'm like, Ammo, she's speaking in Arabic. She doesn't understand English. And he's like, no, she just spoke in English. I couldn't understand her. This was the first time I remember I understood, okay, hearing people cannot fully communicate or understand deaf people. And this was where I understood that I have a role of interpreting and bridging the gap between these two worlds. I think I missed your question.
No, it's. I mean, it's a big question because you've had now, in a way, it's more than just your life story. It's a career as well. But just from what you saw, and it could be anecdotal, that you saw your parents, or even in general, a deaf community, with obstacles that should not be there. Is that the reason why you decided to turn this into, in a way, it's a mission for you to make it easily accessible to do the basics in sign language?
I don't want to say that I am teaching now sign language just because I want to see Lebanon more accessible. I'd like to think that I'm teaching sign language because I learned so much from the deaf community. I don't see that hearing people, they have more. I see the deaf community as a extremely rich and this community, Roni, they have a lot of information, talents, life lessons that we as hearing people are missing out on. We don't know what these people know because we cannot communicate with them. So for me, I think it's the other way around. I'm creating this bridge because the hearing world, they really need to learn a lot from the deaf community. The accessibility is something that we will reach eventually. Now or in the future, we're gonna reach it because the whole world is realizing, come on, we cannot have interpreters missing from events or whatever. So we're gonna reach the accessibility, but it's the way of seeing the world that it's not the hearing people who are helping or supporting the deaf community. It's the other way around. It's what we can learn from the deaf people, because I learned so much. And so teaching sign language for me is about sharing what I learned, how I see my own body, how sign language makes me understand my own ideas and feelings, and where I feel these feelings in my body. So I can give a few examples, actually.
Sure, yeah. And I'll let you, but I want to say one thing. I'm really glad you're saying that you're pointing at an issue that I deal with regularly, which is that this is not a disability. And I actually appreciate that you're flipping the whole story on its head by saying hearing people should be more attentive and perhaps, pardon the pun here, should listen more to a community that is hearing impaired. So I appreciate you flipping the narrative on its head. And I interrupted you. You can go back to the anecdotes.
No, you did not interrupt me. I was done with my ideas. But I have an exercise that maybe I can ask everybody to participate in, but not the deaf people. Deaf people, please try not to sign. Please just put your hands. Because I want to ask the hearing people to try to speak in sign language. So please, deaf people, do not use your hands. Okay, please, thank you. Even hearing people who know sign language. So I want to ask everybody to just close your eyes, and I will say one word, and you just intuitively try to think, how would you say it in sign language?
This is where you steal all our money and you leave?
Yes, I steal your money because your eyes are closed.
Yes.
And I have deaf people with me to help me.
This is a family business.
This is my family business. Yes, we steal. We wait for people to close their eyes.
Nice purse. Where'd you get that from?
I'm kidding. Okay, so close your eyes and try to use your hands to say this word. I want you to think of the word nervous. أو موتر. How would you do it? Okay, just open your eyes. I know that there are people who are listening to this podcast and they can't see. So we see people shaking, their hands are shivering. We see people who have their fists clenched. And so in sign language, nervous is like this, exactly how you guys did. So it's like there are hands that are shivering, and they're not above your head, because this is actually clapping in sign language. And we intuitively know that If there's a feeling that is a bit negative, our hands are a bit lower. If there's a feeling that is positive, our hands go up. And nobody teaches us this. And this is the beautiful thing about sign language, is that it's so intuitive that people, when they start learning sign language, they tell me, oh, but I do this sign all the time. I did not know that this is sign language. And for me, if I teach more words in sign language, people will start understanding their own feelings. Because I experienced this. I felt like I can understand my feelings better when I stop for a second and I think about this sign of masalan, anger. Like my fists are closed. There's something near my stomach. This is where anger starts. Pride. Pride is something you feel deep down inside, and then it goes up. So you need to express that you're proud, just like your mom was telling you she's proud of you. She felt like she needs to express, right? So it's just like that, sign language is so beautiful. It's like a map of our feelings in our body, or our ideas, and how they exist in the world. It's so beautiful.
So we'll get into maybe other types of examples, like nervousness, which comes out naturally, I guess, to most people. It's almost like an expression that I think is shared in its physical aspect. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you two really basic questions. And I'm sorry if this is a bit too naive on my side. Is there a sign language? Is there sign language access in Lebanese schools? Is there something that is sort of standard that deaf people can learn through sign language in schools, not only private, but public too? So it's a very basic, like how accessible is sign language when it comes to education?
So in Lebanon...
Sorry, what is Lebanon?
Lebanon. So this is... Yes, just like the cedar tree. Yes. So yes.
That's amazing.
So it's iconic. It's
like,
symbolic.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, go ahead. Whenever you want to ask about a word, just interrupt me and tell me.
I will ask actually, because Lebanon came up. Are we literally just doing a tree, or are these words?
So in the example of Lebanon, it's as if we are drawing the tree. So it's one on top and the other one is on the bottom.
So this is
so you don't do it in the same place. You need to visually draw it.
So it's a very stupid question, but if you're not, let's say you're deaf and someone from Lebanon says, I am from Lebanon, how would they know that is Lebanon? They would have to know it already, or is there a way to spell it out?
The signs for countries in the world are international. So all of the countries, deaf people know that this sign is for Syria, for example. This sign is for Lebanon.
So Syria is
like this, because you have two stars on the flag. So each finger points at a star, for example.
And that would be difficult if you're from, let's say you don't know the flag of Syria, or you don't know that Lebanon has a tree on its flag. How would you be able to explain that without that knowledge in advance?
So if you're asking if this person is deaf?
Yeah.
Okay. So just like any word that is a name, you can start by basically pronouncing. You use the letter like L, E, B, like
right.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
Or like you can show it on the map or on the phone. And the same way you are introduced a person to your name, you can use the letters. But then this is where a very beautiful thing about sign language begins, is that each name has its own sign. And in the deaf community, each person, they have their own sign. And the basis is like a physical feature. Like, for example, Lebanon, you can see the tree on the flag. Or for Syria, you can see the two stars on the flag. So for people, maybe, like for me, it's Naila, like in reference to my curly hair. For someone else, it can be, they have this like the mole beauty mark on their face. So other people call me Naila by referring to this beauty mark. It can be a habit, like for example, I know a woman whose sign is like this because she used to smoke a lot. She stopped smoking cigarettes, but her sign is still that.
Wow.
As if she's smoking. So khalas, this is her sign.
So that would be more among those that know each other. But for Lebanon, you'd have to maybe, or Syria, which that's a very, was it like this? The two, yeah. That would, I guess, have to be pronounced for somebody who would not.
So for the first time, if this person doesn't know this country, you would pronounce, but then you would show the sign. And then for the rest of for the rest of both of your lives, khalas, both of you know that this is Syria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a tangent I did by intentionally. Let's go back to the education and accessibility for the deaf community.
So in Lebanon, schools, like regular schools that are not, focused on people with disabilities, I never heard of any school actually that teaches sign language just because. There are certain schools just for deaf people. So it's like I can see that there's segregation. So deaf people on their own, hearing people on their own. Some schools try to be inclusive, but I don't think that we reached a point where, we see sign language as something that is beautiful, that is just like any other language. We see it as just a way to communicate with the deaf. And I think this is why we don't see sign language spreading. For me, sign language is not just to communicate with the deaf. Sign language for me is a way to understand my thoughts, my body, my feelings, and also to express myself artistically. And I can imagine, I have one student, she's a theater practitioner, and she was telling me she would love to use sign language in her theater practice because it's a way of expressing yourself.
I don't remember if it's you that told me or Wissam Kamal told me, who's going to be sitting here next week. He's a stand-up comedian who dreamt about doing his entire act through sign language. I can't remember if it's you or him that shared this story to me, which it would be an incredible thing to do. I've never seen anything like that. So you remind me if that was you.
I don't remember because I know Wissam, and we both spoke about this a lot, that he is preparing the stand-up comedy show fully in sign language, and he wants to invite deaf people just to watch like a full show just in sign language.
I think I told him it would be great if they don't laugh. Then it means you need to fix your material. It's a testing audience. You have to go back to the clubs. It's not about the hearing issue.
For me, Wissam is doing a great step, which is using sign language in his own career. And I think that once he starts using sign language, he will find a different form of comedy that is based on the body,
Yeah.
on the hands, on facial expressions. And I think he will be surprised with himself as well.
He'll be sitting here next week, so that it's something I'm
Yeah.
going to bring up with him as well. I want to ask you about different types of sign language. I did some basic research, and it's actually nice because this ties into when we first met. I saw that online there are different methods, or there's different sign languages. There's the American standard one, there's British, I think there's a French version too. And I did not find a Lebanese specific version. It felt like Lebanon uses multiple versions at once. So just to understand that better, is that a correct is that a correct understanding that Lebanon is the way that people speak? In other words, multiple languages together in sign language too?
Yes. So in Lebanon, approximately we have 6. I've heard maybe 7 different sign languages, but I wouldn't say that they are fully different languages. I think it's more like accents. So just like we see people who live in Beirut versus people who live in Trablus or Baalbek, they have a different way of pronouncing words. So in Lebanese sign language, you will find that there are a lot of words or signs in common, and there are signs that are a little bit different. But thanks to our government, we don't have one unified language, like sign language.
So it's accents. In other words, would it be easy for somebody who's trained in the American version to speak to somebody or to sign to somebody who's trained in the French version? Is there a lot of overlap? I would love it if you're actually telling everyone this guy makes no sense. He asks me questions that are not meaningful. I have to use the bathroom.
No, I promise. It's because I'm an interpreter. I really like to deliver the idea fully. So
I would
I'm
have
not
more
doing
respect
this.
for you if that
But
was
later on, I would tell them a few secrets.
Sure, yeah. Should I tell? I'll show them what you told me before we started.
I taught him a bad word.
The first thing she taught me was a bad word.
Sorry, I have this bad habit. Sorry. People always ask me about, bad words. I don't know why, but I'd love to teach. Teaching is teaching.
Let me give you an example, actually, because I did this to Naila after first meeting her at Calais Cafe, a circle of staff, and she was instructing. When I was a kid, I think one sign language interpreter came to a course I was taking at school, a communications course, but I mean a class for children's level. And they taught us some basics, and that included what I thought was I love you and I hate you. I remember I love you being this. And I think that is correct across languages, across sign languages. But I thought, the way I remembered it, this is I hate you. And Naila told me that that may not be right in the version she uses. So if you could remind me what that I think was the issue at hand, that these are different accents.
So I don't know who taught you, like here in Lebanon.
No,
right?
this was in the US, but this is maybe
okay.
35 years ago. I mean, it's a long time ago.
Okay, so each country, they have their own sign language. Internationally, this is I love you. I don't know how to explain it to people who are hearing and not seeing. But anyway, the sign you did, this is the letter Y in a British and American alphabet. So this is the letters, this is Y. So in Lebanon, if I want to say to a person that I hate them, I'd start with my hand, of course, facial expressions. all the time. This person really needs to know that you hate them. And you start with the hand closed, and then you'd look at the person. Who do I look at? This is hard. So, okay, Francis, I would look at Francis. So I would look at Francis and close my hand and say, I hate you. And open my hand as if I'm throwing something at her. I hate you. I don't, I love you. I'm sorry.
So there's no shortcut to I hate you in a way that's... I don't know why that's
not
stuck
that I
with me.
know of.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe during the break, I will ask the deaf people
Okay.
if they know a sign. Yeah. We can see them using the same
Yeah,
the same sign.
right.
So
Okay.
not nice.
But that is the universal I love you.
Yes, internationally, this is I love you.
Right.
But like an abbreviation of I hate you, no, I don't think there is.
You know what? Let's look it up during the break because that'd be interesting. It stuck in my mind. And I remember it being, it could be bad memory, but it did stick in my mind that there was, naturally, this is I love you because of the I and L. But that, you're right, if that's why, it would make no sense. But we'll look it up. But I also remember that lip reading was part of the story, that the deaf community is almost, I don't want to say it's required, but that there is a necessity to a degree for those that cannot use sign language to lip read. Does that become part of the story too? Are you, in a way, is that part of the interpretation that you have to learn how to lip read better?
So basically, deaf people, especially in Lebanon, but I think around the world, they use their hands, the facial expressions, but also they lip read. Because there are many signs that are, like you use the same sign for different words that have a very similar meaning. So if you are a person who doesn't know sign language, it is very important that you articulate. So because deaf people read your lips and they see your face. So if you are trying to say, for example, thank you, but you are so like you're nervous and you're confused and your face is communicating all of this and you're like, thank you, they would see, it's like, what are you trying to do?
Right.
Like, are you thanking me or are you, what's happening? So there has to be an alignment between your face, between what your lips are saying and between your hands.
Right.
And for me as an interpreter, I always need to say the words that I'm signing because this is how deaf people understand. This
is a very personal story. I would never bring this up in any other episode because it's a memory that I look back on fondly. My first encounter with a deaf person was at a video store, and this is dating me now. It's when you used to rent video cassettes. So you actually had to go to a video store. This is pre-NabilNet days where we all burned DVDs. This is the old VCR. We know that, yeah. We're old enough to know that. And the lady that I would rent videos from was lip reading without me realizing it. And she would speak sometimes, but her voice was not always at the right tone. It was oftentimes the words were muffled, and it didn't occur to me right away that she was deaf. But she was very comfortable and almost confident in herself and what she was doing, that it actually took me time to realize she was deaf. And that to me set a standard that this is not a disability. It's actually somebody communicating just fine. And that she was carefully able to lip read movie names and titles. And for me, it was very impressive. That's my first encounter. So I noticed the lip reading value, and also that, in a way, it's unexpected, but that, yeah, there are many people among us that are deaf. We just don't know it right away.
Yes, I think, and this is why when I want to communicate with my siblings, and I don't want mom and dad to understand, I turn my face because they can read my lips, or I just put my hand in front of my mouth so that my parents cannot read my lips. But yes, deaf people are so good at reading lips, but also, reading bodies and facial expressions. It's very hard to hide feelings from deaf people because they can catch you. If you're lying, they can catch you. If you're sad, they can catch you. If your eyes are like hiding frustration or anger, they can catch you. So
Seems like
they
you
can
were
read lips and bodies and feelings. And
Sounds like you were in trouble a lot as a kid.
I was a troublemaker. Yeah.
I can
That's
tell.
the other way around.
I can tell she's a troublemaker because she's like me. I met her with a helmet for her Vespa. I do the same thing. Mine is parked right here. So I could realize right away she's a troublemaker too. In a good way. In a good way only. And she's smarter than me. She wears a helmet. I don't.
Well, I sometimes don't wear my helmet. Sorry, Mama, Baba. Sorry. I cannot lie.
Let me get into in a way, the expressiveness of sign language and the dependency on, in a way, it's a visually dependent form of communication. And that, what you just already said, which is deaf people can tell. So there's almost like a sensitivity, if you will, to physical gesture. So it's a strange question, but is that why sign language is so expressive? That it's almost, for somebody who's hearing, it feels like it's overdone sometimes. But is that just a natural component to it, that it's substituting and therefore more sensitive on physical movement?
So imagine if everybody who speaks with their own voice, they all had the same voice, the same tone whole time, just like Siri, just monotone. The voice does not fluctuate. I think the world would be so boring. So the same way in sign language, the facial expressions, the speed of moving the hands or the body, if you're upright or if you're a bit like you have your shoulders down, all of this is like the coloring of the voice, but in it's like a visual coloring of the feelings of how serious this person is or how fun they're trying to be. If they're asking a question, you would see their eyebrows like raised. All of this is expressed with the facial expression. So I would understand that hearing people would look at deaf people and think this is very like caricaturish.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I need to be this expressive to be able to communicate with deaf people? I would say this is something that you learn with time. Feeling like it's okay to just move your face and your hands in a way that matches your own feelings. But in general, yes, deaf people use everything they have to express their own ideas.
So you just offered the example, which is imagine people talking at the same tone always, like Siri. That would be insane to imagine. In terms of tone and sign language, is there an easy way to just amplify what you're signing? For example, you said nervous is literally just hands shaking. How would you sign that I'm very nervous? Would it be just a wider use of it, or is there certain other signs you have to add?
So there are two ways. I can say I am very nervous, And this is more like a formal, I am very nervous. But like the majority of deaf people would actually do what you did, which is basically, like they would almost shake their whole body. Like, I'm so nervous. And their hands would be like trembling even more expressively. So yes, if you want to exaggerate, you would use the same sign and just make it bigger, as if in your voice you are extending. Like, I am so nervous.
Right.
So like I would say nervous, the word, and I would extend my voice inside it. I'm so nervous. Or my voice would shake maybe. So the same way you would modify the sign.
Can you do very again? Okay, so
Very.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. So that's when it's not necessary to overdo it. You could just lean on that as an adjective, or it's
Like to add the word.
Right.
Very. Yeah, you can add very like anywhere you want. But what's more expressive is basically to use the same sign in a more expressive way. So exaggerate if you're adding, and make it more minimal. For example, like with the "I love you,"
right?
Like, I love you. You would just like really smudge it in the person's face, or you would be like, "Okay, I love you."
It's a very toxic form of love. I'd like to actually ask you to do another example. I enjoyed the nervousness activity. If you could do more of that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. So again, everybody who's hearing, please do this exercise. Deaf people, please do not tell them what's the sign. Thank you. Do you have a word in mind that you would like to explore?
I'm trying to think of something that... No, actually, maybe the word that surprises a hearing person that comes naturally to a deaf person. I think that would be interesting.
So you want a word that deaf people would know how to sign, but hearing people would feel like...
That's unusual. Because nervous comes naturally.
Yeah. True.
The example of Lebanon was interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a word that's like in between.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it so difficult. So hearing people, please close your eyes. Okay. And try to sign the word red.
Red.
Okay. So I see. Okay. You can open your eyes. Do it again so that everybody can see what you did. So I see somebody is doing the sign of a sandwich. I don't know why it's a red sandwich, but somebody drew did a heart shape. So actually, the sign for red is this. It's just your index finger rubbing against your lips. So this is red.
That's interesting.
So, you heard bread. Sorry. I'm not articulating. You should have seen me sign.
So hold on. What is the sign for bread?
Bread is like this, as if you're tearing the pieces of bread.
Yeah.
So and it's different if it's like خبز فرنجي. So baguette would be like, baguette, but then خبز عربي. So your hands would do the shape of خبز العربي, and then you would just tear it because...
But I would never think that was red.
So red because of like lipstick, the color of the lips.
Yeah. Are there other examples like that? That's really interesting.
Yeah, examples.
I guess colors are the ones that are difficult.
So some colors are pretty intuitive. Other colors, like for example, blue. Like I never understood why the sign for blue is like this.
Because you're blowing from the mouth, right? Like blow, like a
blow
balloon.
And blue. Look, I don't know. I really like. For me, it's like I don't know why blue is like this.
It's not like a balloon blow.
It sounds like a balloon. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's a very. Maybe
I don't know.
Way off. Actually,
I'm waiting for the day when I receive the story of why the sign for blue is like this. I don't know.
I'll ask you another one. Maybe. Yeah.
another word. Okay, so I give another word.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a fun one. Okay, how would you sign dog? You know it? So yeah, if you couldn't actually bark, how would you use your hands to do the sign for dog? Okay. So I see a lot of people actually using their hand to kind of imitate the barking movement, and somebody just did the ears. So it's a combination of both. Well, you guys are a very smart group of people. It's actually, this is the sign.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Where I'm using 2 fingers to do the ears and the rest of the fingers to imitate the mouth. And to actually do the sign, I need to actually bark with my hand, not necessarily with my voice, but
Right.
so that's the sign for dog. So something like this, it's not completely intuitive for hearing people, but the minute they see it visually, it's very hard to forget because it looks like a dog.
Taking it back to what you did before we met tonight, I actually came to Aaliya's and Naila was teaching sign language to the staff here. So this is in a way 2 lessons in 1 tonight. What are the basics you're teaching to staff? What are the types of, is it service related words? Is it to simplify an order? And sorry to ask this, is it basics like water, coffee, chicken, beef? I mean, just to get an understanding of what you're teaching. And since you chose cafes in particular.
So in my class, I teach, level 1. So it's the basis of communicating in sign language. So I would teach chicken, meat, coffee, and, water and everything else. But I also teach, the basics of communication, because for me it's not only about a deaf person walks in, they order coffee and then they leave. Maybe these 2 people would like to be friends, maybe they would like to communicate, and I don't see employees as just service givers. They are humans, and deaf people are humans. So maybe these 2 people would like to meet. Maybe they would be friends. So I would teach everything, like level 1, the basics of communication.
And sorry to ask, what are the basics, the way you teach it? Is it person to person basic sentences like thank you or goodbye? I mean, I'm just sorry, it's a very silly question, but what are you able to teach to somebody who's not naturally inclined to sign language?
So I'm going to tell you a story that summarizes what I teach. Today I got a text message on my phone from one of my students. He was telling me that he, at university, he always saw a person who was holding a card that has on it the illustrations of the alphabet in sign language. And this person would approach people and say, I am deaf. Would you like to buy these things so that we can support deaf people to buy hearing aids? And this was the first time my student, he decided, I'm going to go and try to talk to this person to see if he's lying or not, or he's really deaf. And what he told me is that he started communicating in sign language, and he understood his name, and that he's been doing this for 20 years, this deaf person, and that this was the first time he saw or met a hearing person using sign language. 20 years he's been holding this card and giving it to people, trying to communicate with them. And this was the first time he met a hearing person who used sign language. And actually he told him about the class, about what he learned, and they exchanged a lot of information. And he even understood that from this person that this deaf person knows different sign languages from Lebanon and that he wants to travel. He doesn't, like this country. It was a full conversation. So I teach words, like how you say them, but I also teach sign language grammar.
Okay.
Which is basically very different from spoken or written language.
So it's really just, by grammar, you mean just how to put a sentence together in sign language?
Yes, so how to make a sentence in sign language. And the beautiful thing is that it's so flexible. Like I can say, woman want eat, or woman eat want. And the same sentence, how I say it is very simple. How I, flip the signs is pretty flexible.
Well, that's interesting. So sign language, it would mean the same thing, or at least it would be understood the same way.
Yeah. Because in spoken language, you need to, masalan, use subject, verb, object, or like there's a structure to spoken language. There's a lot of beauty in it because, you can write poetry, but in sign language, it's so flexible that, you can switch words, you can repeat words or signs. It's so flexible. It's like painting versus writing poetry. They're both a form of art, but one of them is much more visual and the other is something you read.
I appreciate that analogy. And even poetry and standard language, there's flexibility in there too. So I really like that analogy.
Yeah.
Just one more question before we take a break. Actually, sorry, two more questions, but I'll make them brief. Before we sat tonight, we talked about the examples of day-to-day coping from the deaf community that are they can be funny at times, almost comedic. So what are those types of day-to-day coping examples that come to you?
So there are things that deaf people do, but also there are things that hearing people who live with deaf people do to live comfortably.
We don't have to make it too personal, but that's fine.
No, I'm going to share stories. So deaf people,
we can close our ears.
Obviously, we can close our ears if there's a very loud, noise. Deaf people cannot, if they have full, hearing impairment, they would need a different way to be alerted if there is something like a fire alarm or like a doorbell that's ringing. So they would use lights. So in my house, my parents' house, if somebody rings the doorbell, all of the lights in our house, they would just disco. There's a party, because the lights just go on and off. And Baba, please, صلح لأنه منزوع. كتير بدأ. Okay. Message received. He's saying we'll go dancing at home. So this is one way. So you would see visual cues instead of auditory. For me to cope with living with deaf people, everybody would think that maybe deaf people are very quiet. They're very loud. Yeah, my mom is nodding. Yeah, So if I want to, for example, take a nap in the middle of the day, and my parents are awake, right. I would literally I would choose what time I would sleep, because if my parents have their friends over, they would be laughing so loudly that I can understand what they're saying, wow. From a different room. So there's this idea of you would see sounds differently.
Yeah.
You would appreciate the importance of hearing, sensing vibrations. So for deaf people, if you want to call their name, so if I want to say mama, and she's sitting very far away from me, I have several options. I can turn the lights on and off, so she would turn towards the light switch. I can wave my hands and pray that she would just notice me. Or I can throw something at her, like. I don't usually do it, but
this is more
sometimes,
just anger than it's
if I'm angry,
communication.
yes, it could be like a pillow, like something soft and
Good,
nice.
yeah.
Just, Mama, Habibi.
So in a way, it's your. Oh, sorry, please.
No, I want to tell you a story of actually like when things are much more critical. So when we were really young. And I remember this story. I think it's maybe my aunt used to do this when her kids were so young. So she's deaf, and she had babies, obviously.
Sorry, your aunt is deaf?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So
okay.
my mom and a few of her sisters are deaf, but other sisters are not deaf.
Okay.
So if a mother is deaf and her baby is crying, how would she wake up if she's sleeping? So one way was when the baby is too young to communicate or to reach out, she would tie like a rope from her hand to the babies, because like when babies cry, they naturally fidget and move their hands, and this is how she would be waken up at night. But like it's very annoying to sleep with your hand tied to another creature. So the minute this child is able to move a little bit, which is what my mom did, I think we were like 4 months old, something like that. We were so young. Like I don't understand that I was able to do this at like when I was that young. She would say, "No, I'm deaf. Like if you want something, pull the blanket or poke me." And I swear we did that. We were like 4 months old. Like the next night, khalas, we understood. I'm crying. My mom is not responding. So I would just pull the blanket.
That actually lends itself well to the last question I wanted to ask you. And it's something that I'm going to maybe ask it, and you can be as personal as you'd like about this. I can imagine when you're growing up and your parents are deaf, that kids, because they want to fit in, this becomes in a way a perceived disadvantage for you. It can almost be, and I'm sorry to use this word, as a child, it can be embarrassing. And then you grow up and you realize you have two lovely parents, and now you do this for a living, and I'm sure they're proud of you and you're proud of them too. But that comes through time. Is there a moment for you where you made that switch, where you realize that, no, I don't have anything to be either embarrassed about or, sorry to use the word, ashamed of? This is actually a strength. So do you remember a moment where you embraced this as something positive?
So I don't mind sharing, like a personal story. When I was young, so I grew up seeing both of my parents trying to communicate with the world, and seeing that, if right now you are trying to talk to me and I am ignoring you, or I am not able to understand what you are saying, you would feel angry, you would feel frustrated. And so I grew up with a feeling of anger and frustration, like surrounding my parents and their friends. And that was not easy, growing up and feeling like I have a responsibility of interpreting all the time. Like I would sit and watch the news at night just to interpret what's happening in this country. and I cannot watch like cartoon or something else. So I had a lot of like really negative feelings. I had a little bit of shame, of shyness. I felt a little bit nervous when we would go out because I never knew when, like a fight or any issue would start because of this inability to communicate. And people like they get angry so quickly. So I would find myself in the middle, like trying to mediate, so like I would say to this hearing person, please, my like this person is deaf. You just, can you just calm down a little bit? I will interpret. And then I would turn to the deaf person. I would say, like, just calm down. Let me interpret what you are trying to say. So it was very difficult. So I used to see my role as an interpreter as a burden. It took me time, and I remember this one moment when I was in my bedroom, and I was singing in front of the mirror, with the hairbrush, and like singing and
you were
dancing.
happy no one could hear you.
I was happy. Yes, of course. I was happy nobody can hear me. And my mom just opens the door. She just has requests like come wash dishes, clothes, whatever. But instead of asking me something, she just stood there. It was the first time she looked at me differently. And she asked me if I have a beautiful voice.
Wow. And
that moment, I felt like I saw the world differently. That, this question maybe my mom would have like kept inside her from the minute she gave birth to me, and I cried in front of her. So I felt if I can, like be this link between my mom and the world, that it would impact her positively, for sure. And it took me time. It took me time to be friends with this idea of I am not completely part of the deaf world, and I'm not completely part of the hearing world. I am somewhere in between. And this in between is a responsibility. It's a burden sometimes, but mostly it's a gift. And it took me time to accept this gift and to claim this role that I have. So, yeah.
There's no better way to wrap up this discussion. I'm going to go as far as I can in terms of comparison. I think it's the individuals that are out of place. They become the best interpreters. They become natural mediators. And they also become, and I will say this with full confidence, storytellers. You're telling a whole community's story, and you're telling that community our story. You do it quite well. When it comes to a different form of language, the written word, I'm not saying that you're the same in any other way except this. If you know Edward Said, and I think you do, he always felt out of place at home and abroad. All his writing was about discomfort, but trying to be a link among many different threads. And I think that's the moment you can shine as a gifted storyteller. You're incredible, Naila. So
thank you.
Stay a bit uncomfortable because it's really working right. And we're going to take a 10-minute break. You can order whatever you'd like in the meantime, but stick around. There's a Q&A, there's a question and answer, and I'd like to ask the audience some questions as well, and Naila can be the interpreter. So, thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back.
Can you please let the audience know, Naila, that Samir's voice is seductive and... Oh. Who's your mom and dad? Okay. All right. Well, are you looking for a husband? For a certain fee, we can make that happen tonight. No. Then you have to pay me not to.
See this? That means lower the temperature.
Lower the temperature. Lower expectations. Sorry? Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, because it's a special night with a special audience and a terrific guest, I'd like to make this Q&A as engaging and fun and rewarding as possible. I am going to take advantage and ask the audience a few questions. Naila will interpret. But we have a question up front from the lovely guest seated here. So we'll start with you. And if you could just introduce yourself, who you are and why you're here. It's just her. Yeah.
Hi, I'm. Can you hear me?
No, can you...
One moment. Okay, testing. 1, 2, 3. Frances Ebuzide, and I'm the chief of party for the USAID Lebanon Civic Action Accelerator Program. And full disclosure, we work closely with Naila, and she supports us in communicating with the deaf community and ensuring inclusion and accessibility of our work with people with disabilities. This podcast is very timely. Sunday is International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and it's an opportunity also globally and in Lebanon to advance the rights of persons with disabilities. And one of the debates that I have with Naila is, where is the deaf community in advocating for your rights, with whether it's the government of Lebanon, universities, schools, private sectors, to be full participants in this society, and using things like the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as Law 220/2000. Sorry to use all of these details, but the point is there is some type of legal framework that provides an opportunity to advance the rights of the deaf community. So the challenge with Naila and Mira, come in, nice to meet you, Mira, is how do we ensure the rights of people from the deaf community to exercise their rights to education, to employment, to healthcare, and other parts of society. And what can we do to mobilize young people? Yes, there are organizations of people with disabilities, but there are people who are not involved. So how do we do this better and support a new generation of young people from the deaf community to claim and advocate for their rights? Thank you.
In my opinion, the first thing that hearing people can do is to be curious about sign language, the deaf culture. This way, when people start learning sign language, they become like advocates for the rights of people who are deaf, because they start understanding the beauty of this community and their language. That's the first thing that each one of us can do. To approach deaf people and their language with a little bit of curiosity, instead of how can I help you. So in terms of organizations, I'm fully aware that in Lebanon, there's a lot of issues related to organizations and how organizations, they work together or against each other, and how all of this dynamic, it impacts negatively the deaf people, because this organization says, I'm the best. This organization says, I'm the best. And we reach a point where, deaf people are like, please, can somebody just help us, or like connect us, or so this is like, I would say this is a call for organizations who work for the rights of deaf people or any other disability. It doesn't matter who starts a program or a project. The impact, it comes back to you. So, for example, when I started teaching sign language, I never imagined that I would be receiving messages that would make me cry of joy. I was just doing it because I was enjoying it. And the stories I hear about, deaf people interacting with hearing people, and the beauty that comes out of these stories, it just impacts me positively the same way it impacts these two people who met. And so maybe I hope, Francis, I really hope that these organizations would start seeing their own work not as, I have a checklist, and if I do it first, then I win. But rather, any step that I do, even if it's in collaboration with another organization, would get me more funds, would get me more exposure. So more future thinking and ambition instead of selfishness and hiding to yourself. Information is everywhere, and plans are everywhere. Everybody can do. But these collaborations, when there's an opportunity and you seize it, this is when the impact is like more than you can imagine.
I'm going to take advantage and ask another question myself, which is something I forgot to ask during the discussion. And I'll make this personal. As a child, as a very young boy in the US growing up, I remember seeing two things. Public television would always have an interpreter for things that were very basic. It could be something like a city hall discussion, but there would be someone interpreting on the side. And even at times, news bulletins, there would be an interpreter on television. And that was, I think, at some point required for public access in the US. So that's one thing. The other thing is Braille, that I would see taking the metro, taking the subway. You could actually, literally, blind or not, you would be able to physically interact with Braille communication on the stops, the following stops on a metro. So these two things you grow up with, and they become normalized quickly. You don't think of it as odd. In this country, in your experience, do you find that there's a stigma to the deaf community, or for anyone with disability in that sense? Do you experience it yourself? When you're doing this, is it in any way discriminatory? Do you find yourself trying to normalize it almost when you're teaching?
I think you're right. Like, if you grow up seeing something all the time, you would see it as normal. In Lebanon, I a lot of the times I see people looking at somebody who's signing with, like, their eyes would be open. Wow, what is this? It's so beautiful to look at. Because it's maybe it's the first time for many of you seeing somebody speaking in sign language. So yes, there's this element of this is new. It's the first time I see somebody signing, or it's the first time I see a deaf person. I hear how a deaf person's voice sounds like. And I grew up seeing this element of, wow, this is strange. For me, this was the normal thing, that hearing people would look at the deaf people as something different, as something foreign. Wow, a deaf person. Wow, I see them signing. Wow. So I grew up with hearing people's eyes on me and my family.
That's a sign language accident you just did. Hearing people's eyes on me.
Hearing people's eyes on.
Because you don't hear eyes, you see eyes.
Oh yeah. Play on words.
That's too many languages at once.
Yeah. And like my interpreting brain is like fried right now. I'm like, how can I get this message across?
I saw what you said too.
Yeah, you saw what I said.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, so in Lebanon, the normal thing is deaf people are strange. Sign language is strange. And I hope that we'll get to a point where sign language can be inside every school, university, just as an option for somebody who would like to learn more. And in some places, something mandatory, because it's important for deaf people, but it's also important for hearing people. I'm just going to add one idea. I think now, in the times that we're living in, using your brain is not enough. We are moving towards a world where feelings are as important as thoughts. And imagination and art is as important as, science and math and logic. So I see sign language as a portal for learning about ourselves and the community, not just as a connection between deaf people and hearing people. I really see the value of it as a language. Like, I learned so much. I cannot count the number of things that I learned because of sign language. Or I think that who I am as a person and how my brain works is really like heavily impacted by sign language. So, yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Samer Beha?
All right. I just want to second what you were talking about earlier regarding the problem with NGOs and organizations and how they fight against each other rather than progress on the things they're supposed to be working on. I've seen that across the board because I've been an activist for a very long time, back from the 90s, and I've seen it with environmental NGOs and so on. I think the problem is that they're all competing for the same small pool of funding, which is why they end up, being at odds with each other, which leads me to a question that I wanted to ask. You and I have worked before with the CLS on inclusive design campaigns and awareness of that. What, in your opinion, is the biggest impediment towards businesses and other organizations implementing inclusivity in their daily life or doings?
I think that companies and like non-governmental institutions think that working on accessibility and inclusion is costly. They see it as kind of like a burden that they can do without, because they don't understand that when a company or any person works on inclusion, they are not only, like helping people with disability to basically, get access to this job or information, that they are actually making their own information, their own products, everything that they do, they're making it accessible for everyone. So if I am trying to tell you guys a story and I use words that are very difficult, like you would need to open like a book and try to find what's the meaning of this word, then I am not making my story accessible to all of you. It would only be accessible to those who have learned English for years and they know that this word, this very fancy, difficult word, what it means. So I think that, companies are not accessing talents, ideas, ways that make their own life and work easier and much more accessible and profitable. Because the community of people with disabilities, they have the financial capacity to buy. They have ideas. They have. They're a rich population that if you make your own work accessible for them, you're automatically making your work faster, much more productive, innovative, and accessible for people who will eventually become disabled because of their age. Like, we're all going to grow older and maybe, lose our ability to see. Like, we would need eyeglasses or hear. Or maybe our brain would get so tired that we would need explanation, more than once for a certain idea. So if everybody works on inclusion, we wouldn't feel like we are missing out on life because we just grew older. So yeah, I think these companies are missing out on a lot. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Are there other questions? Anyone has any question? Is that someone in the back? No? Is there somebody? No? Oh, you? No, wait, let's go back to the beginning and then we'll go forward. So the lady wearing the red sweater, is that right? Yes.
So she will be using sign language and I will be telling you guys. So first of all, she's thanking you. So she's saying basically, she's saying, first of all, thank you for doing this. And she's saying that, she would like to tell the world that, deaf people, they put a lot of effort trying to basically communicate with their kids and trying to be this bridge between their kids and the world and the deaf world. So they're already putting a lot of effort and a lot of work to do this. And so she wants the world to know that it's not easy doing this.
This gives me permission to ask the audience a question, and I can ask it straight to your parents, if that's okay. So it's to your mom and dad. That kind of challenge, which she just mentioned, which is doing many things at once, which are not easy, proving that there's nothing wrong, that these are your parents and they're strong. They're also, in a way, having to raise you too, And that challenge, I think, is enormous, regardless of hearing or hearing impaired, and then trying to make you feel at ease too. So the complications of raising Naila, deaf parents, Naila speaks wonderfully. She's a gifted speaker, but I can imagine it being extra hard on you, trying to overcome that kind of, which is, I think, to a large degree, maybe you share this, I don't know, there is still a stigma in this country on the most basic things, including disabilities like being deaf. So what is it like to raise Naila?
So I used to think, so when my mom married my dad, so my kids were young, I used to think about the future. Should I just leave them? No, I want to take care of them, and I want to stress on them to go study. It's important for them to go to study first and then go out. So I really worked hard on them to work on themselves. So my eldest daughter, when she was applying for the brevet, when she succeeded in the brevet, we got her a phone as a gift. For Naila, she said I want a phone, but I said, when you also succeed in brevet, we will give you a phone. So the next year she succeeded and we gave her a phone. So for my younger son, he said, I want a phone as well. I don't have a phone. I also said, when you succeed in brevet, I would give you your phone. So now it's like when I tell you guys, when you succeed and now they reached university level and they graduated, I'm so proud of them.
And I thank God. I need a new phone.
My dad's saying tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Thank you. Yes, I'll be right here. So it's...
So my dad's saying, but...
I think I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So he's saying his... So he's saying what's beautiful is that he can see, hearing people here who are putting effort and, they're trying to talk about this, about, the deaf community. And this is beautiful for him to see this. But the issue is that there are basic things that are needed, like, for example, having interpretation on TV, as you said.
Yeah.
And there has been so many efforts, to the government, applying and saying, please, can we have interpretation? Can we have interpretation? And it's and this is what he did exactly. They would take this file and they would say,
yeah,
and just slide it under the chair or whatever. And he's saying that, the deaf community is just so frustrated and emotionally drained, having the need to fight for such a basic thing. When, on the contrary, they see that individuals are actually willing to make effort, but the government are just not.
This is a question to both parents and you as well. Is this entirely your journey, or did your parents encourage you to do this?
So when we were young, my mom is saying we used to use sign language with, and we were speaking sign language, and our kids just observed and they learned. And so they have a lot of ideas around sign language, but it's Naila chose to go through this. And this is where I would add to my mom's idea that me working as an interpreter or teaching sign language is not an old thing. Like I started in 2017 or 18 maybe. So it's quite new for me. And I see that the demand for interpretation and sign languages is increasing with time because organizations are obliged to work on inclusion and accessibility. Thank God, yani, money is coming in just for that. So my parents, I think, how they impacted my choice.
And sorry, the reason I also asked this,
Yeah.
because you mentioned earlier your sister's an interpreter as well. So it's not just yourself doing this in the family.
So I started working as an interpreter, and then I noticed that there aren't many interpreters. There's just me, maybe like 6 people, maximum 10 people in the whole country that, you know, that have the ability to interpret and have the time or the skills. Because I see also like deaf people tell me that, you know, this is a person who works as an interpreter, but we don't understand what, like, she's like, the sign language is not clear. So there's a need for interpretation, but also there's a need for clear interpretation. Not everybody who knows the language can deliver an idea easily. And Ronnie, the issue is that in Lebanon, there aren't any classes or schools just for sign language interpretation. So this is something that I had to learn on my own with the support and the help of a lot of deaf people. Like these people helped me by telling me, this word, say it differently. Like Noha is one of these people who like tells me, so I saw your video, you said, I don't know, you said this word like this. Next time you do the sign, say it this way. So I'm getting coached by the deaf community as I'm working in this field. So I feel supported by all of the deaf people.
I hope,
Really,
I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but Noha is also your parents' teacher. So there's generations of teaching in this room tonight. I think that's incredible. And you have great guidance for that reason. You're able to easily sort of have that feedback, and it's proving itself very effective. Are there other questions?
So my dad is saying, how did Naila learn sign language? So we would have, there was a kind of like a deaf club, and all of these deaf people would be just sitting and speaking in sign language. And he would see me like just like observing with my eyes wide open and like just kind of soaking in all of the signs.
But I would guess you're good at teaching many things. I think sign language is obviously what you're doing now, but you're a good communicator. So I think you could teach many different subjects. So I think there was a question up front from my mother. Let's give her the mic. No, you didn't have a question? Yeah. Whatever you ask, you have to celebrate both of us. You can't be hard on me and, you know, easy on. Go ahead.
You're an amazing woman. By the way, I'm really honored, and I think I'm privileged to have met you and meet your dear parents. You should be proud of her. You raised beautiful kid. I'm more than touched, really, to see how beautiful you are. You're great people. I hope the best for everyone. And Ronnie, I cannot more than thank you for bringing this lovely woman and share with us this lovely journey. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for expressing.
No, really, it's from the deep heart. It's. I'm really, really touched.
Was there somebody in the back? Oh.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for using sign language to express this. We love you too.
Love.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
You know, I have to say it though, when everyone does that, I'm at a rock concert. I'm not
Yeah.
I love you.
So the difference, Ronnie, actually is if you
Yeah, it's Guns N' Roses. It's not.
if you close your thumb, yes, then it's rock.
Oh.
But if you open your thumb, it's I love you. And the
Right.
reason is the little pinky finger alone is the letter I.
By the way, thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
I checked during the break on what I thought was I hate you. It's the beginning of I hate you. It's I and then HATEYOU. So it was the first letter. I think my memory just failed me after the first letter. So yeah, bad memory.
No problem at all.
I was at too many Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's what you said. Like the sign for I love you is an abbreviation of the first letters of the words. This is the letter I, this is the letter L, and this is the letter Y. So if you combine the letters that you use,
Right.
it would be I, love, and then Y for you.
Right.
This is why. And if you go to any country in the world and you meet a deaf person and you do this, they would understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there more questions? No? Did you have the lady in the back?
Yes. Caroline. So she said when she was young, she did not learn sign language. I need her to move closer because of the light. I cannot read her lips. So she went to Iraq for school. So she works at the learning center for with the learning center for the deaf, and with Iraq as well. So she wants to say one thing. So she worked with the government a lot, yani, for many years, and it's been very hard. So she decided that she doesn't want to work with the government to get to these goals. She wants to work with just regular people in her daily life. Now she's 60 years old, and now she feels proud, basically, of everything she did. She handled her own responsibilities on her own, and she did everything on her own. She's saying thank you for. She's thanking me for doing this, and she wants to keep encouraging me. Because sign language is very important now and for the future, for the whole community. It's needed in hospitals, with lawyers, we always need interpreters. When I always go to the hospital on my own, I try to lip read, and I can, but not all deaf people have this ability to lip read. So I did not learn sign language, but I learned how to pronounce better. Not all deaf people have this ability. So she wants to say thank you for everybody, but she's saying that, and she hopes that this is not the first and the only time that something related to sign language and the deaf community is done. She hopes that this is something that keeps going. She's saying that she knows you from before. You used to work at UNICEF. You looks like somebody who used to work at UNICEF. She's saying thank you again.
Maybe I can ask her this question then. That I think is probably quite common, that you're forced to do lip reading, maybe more than you'd want to, and you're also forced to project that voice. So is that, and at least in this country, is that the standard way or is sign language instruction standard? Because I can imagine in Lebanon, things are broken in sign language instruction too. That a lot of people end up in her position by default.
She's saying, no, but so it's just because she did not learn sign language before that she had to read leap. So, okay, so in Iraq, when she was learning there, there was a lot of stress on lip reading as like an easy way to bridge the gap between deaf people and hearing people. But then they realized that because of grammar, because sign language does not follow the grammar of spoken language, they realized that it's going to be difficult for deaf people to lip read all the time alone, because there would be like grammatical elements that they would not understand. And this is where, there's a necessity for sign language. So for example, for a kid who's 3 years old or like younger, there is a necessity for sign language for them to communicate their ideas and thoughts. And then but now like they grow up to go to universities and schools and things are different. But back when she was young, she just stopped at when she was 14. She stopped learning because there wasn't any schools that continued the educational path for deaf people beyond that age. She's saying that I struggled a lot in my life. I worked at Iraq and then I left. And then she worked at a restaurant. And it was very difficult to communicate.
I would guess her experience is probably more common than we assume. And that's just because many things are broken in this country and you're forced into that position. I don't want to overstep with this question. I'll ask it the best way I know how. From what I've gathered about your own family, is that there are many deaf relatives within your own family. It's your parents and an aunt, and did I understand right, a grandmother as well, or a grandfather who was deaf? So I don't know if it's hereditary or is it, I guess, is this passed on, or is it something that happens at birth? I mean, what is it's a very stupid question, I know. I should know this already. But in your unique case, there's a lot of deaf relatives.
So in my family, so my mom and dad are not deaf because of like hereditary reasons. Each one of them had a certain medical. Each one of them had a different medical case. Like fever, something like chickenpox, something like that. But other deaf people, like some deaf people are born deaf, so it's hereditary. But other deaf people, maybe they have some sort of an accident growing up, or like I know somebody who like pierced their own eardrum when they were cleaning their ears. So there are different reasons why a person would become deaf.
I see.
And not everybody is because of hereditary
So these were medical conditions that led to deafness, but then there is a hereditary version of deafness too. Did I get that right? That both happen, and then hereditary can lead to...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, of course. You can be born deaf and then have your kids also deaf. And Caroline's saying is because like in the past it used to happen more frequently because relatives would marry each other, so you would see a lot of more deaf people,
right?
Because of like hereditary reasons.
And just in general, what is the percentage of people that are deaf? Is it, I mean, less than 1%? Is there an estimate?
So I don't know of a certain percentage, but I know that it's around 15,000 people who are deaf in Lebanon.
In Lebanon.
That's yeah. So I was about to say the same thing. That there are a lot of numbers that are hidden because not all deaf people go to a school.
Yeah.
Not all families that have a deaf son or daughter feel like it's okay to bring them out to the world. Like a lot of families might feel that they are a bit shy, they would hide the deaf person. And so this deaf person would not experience life. And so these numbers are hidden. And I think it's definitely more than 15,000.
Okay. Any other questions for Naila? Yes.
So he's saying when he was around 1 year old, he had a really high fever. So his the nerve that
Okay.
the hearing nerve, I think, I don't know what it's called. It was impacted because of the fever. So he's giving an example of a
age
medical.
one, at 1 year old.
He was like a year, maximum a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. And Caroline is the same. She was 2 years old.
Fair.
Yeah.
Oh, 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so back then, doctors, there wasn't a lot of access to really good doctors, and they wouldn't know how to deal with this issue or have like good best practices
Yeah.
to resolve like a fever issue without impacting the hearing.
Right. Oh, yes, please.
Saying my mom, she was pregnant, everything was good. When she gave birth, I was good. I can hear, I can cry for a few months. All was good. When I was 4 months old, I got a fever. There was a problem with the medication that they gave her. So her fever actually increased. And then she fell asleep, and she fell asleep for such a long time, and she was not crying. And everybody was like screaming and talking and yelling next to her, and she would sleep for long hours. And her mom and her grandma would be so surprised, like there are so many loud voices. So her mom carried her, tried to clap and make loud noises next to her ears.
Yeah.
And she noticed that she cannot hear. So they took her to the hospital, and then they realized that she became deaf. And
Sorry, how old were you?
4 months old.
So 4 months. 4 months.
Yes.
Ah.
She was able to hear, but then because of the fever and wrong medication, she became deaf.
If I can ask this in general, is there anyone that became deaf later in life?
So she's saying that she was born deaf already.
Okay, born deaf.
So, okay, her husband, he's hearing. When he was 15, he lost his hearing ability.
I see. He's not here, right? He's not in the audience. No.
He's not here. He is in Canada.
Okay.
But she's saying that when he was 15, he lost his ability to hear, and they got married 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's in Canada. He's not in Lebanon.
2 years and then he left.
He had an infection.
No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. Can you tell her 2 years that's the honeymoon period, and then it's I love you too.
I'm surprised she said I love you after what you said to her.
We'll go get him and bring him back. Don't worry.
So her husband doesn't speak sign language.
Right.
He never. When he met her, he learned sign language. He started learning sign language because he was used to, so he's deaf or not? He used to hear, he was hearing, now he's deaf. So he was so used to like the hearing community, he was never part of the deaf community. And after he married her, he started learning sign language and being part of...
So actually, this is why I was...
It was difficult for him because he did not learn sign language.
Yeah.
When they started, when they got married, she taught him sign language. It's like he became insanely happy. He really needed sign language.
Yeah.
Because in the future, yeah, so like he can't really hear, and he did not feel like he need the sign language, but he was saying that in the future when I grow even older, I was going to need sign language more and more.
Yeah.
And so he was insanely happy when he learned sign language after they got married. Now he's very happy with sign language because he can communicate with all the deaf people. He feels like now he's part of the community.
So
he was so used to like being with hearing people. So now it's like there's a balance between both of these worlds.
But may I ask, is there anyone in the audience that remembers hearing?
That remembers hearing?
Yeah,
so they
lost their hearing later.
So my mom is saying that she was born and around 2 years, when she was 2 years old, she lost her ability to hear. And she was young. Everybody would say that she was so smart and bright. And her mom was always surprised at how smart she is. And her name is Zakiya, which means smart in Arabic. And she's saying that maybe this is the reason. And she's saying her kids are also smart. Thank you, Mama.
Well,
Like,
of course.
Yes.
Sorry, the lady in the back. Yes.
Yes, Rania. So she wants to talk about a little bit of a different topic. 2 months ago, she went to the hospital. She had like blood tests run. She saw a deaf person. She doesn't know them. They tried to communicate with the doctor, and they couldn't. She saw that this person was so tired, trying to communicate with the doctor, but he couldn't, and she felt so sad. So she was able to interfere and help, but she felt like it was so frustrating for her to see like how sad the situation was, that this person was unable to speak with a doctor, such a basic thing at a hospital.
Yeah.
It's so important to have deaf people, and sometimes deaf people's kids, who usually are their interpreters, are not with them. So for example, their kids travel, or maybe there's a deaf person on their own and then they fall and they break something and they need to communicate. And how can they do that? There has to be more interpreters. It's so important in such situations. And she's saying thank you.
Well, thanks to you. Thank you. We have time for one more question. The lady in the front.
Yes. I can't hear.
Yeah, I don't know how relevant my question is, but how often do you use writing to communicate with people?
Can you? Yes.
Yeah, how often do they use writing to communicate with people?
So I would, from what I saw, and I saw a few deaf people also saying the same thing. Deaf people don't use writing a lot for many reasons. One of the reasons is that sign language has a different grammar rules than spoken language. So, for example, when I use text messaging to communicate with mom and dad, the way we write is different. Like another person would read and they'd feel like, what is this? It's a little bit like gibberish. So deaf people do not use writing a lot. Maybe like the youth or the new generation would use texting or writing more than the old generation. But mostly they would point at things. So for example, if they're at a restaurant and there's a menu, they would point at what they want. They would try to articulate as much as possible, but writing, not much.
Anymore. Okay, last question for Samer.
It's more of a commentary rather than a question. All right, so I teach sound. I'm a sound engineer. And at this point, growing older, I can't hear anything above 13 kilohertz anymore. And one of the funny things that I teach students, and this is just a little anecdote, is like, you know this Lebanese saying that, you know, بسطن دعيني حدا عم بيذكرنا بالخير أو الشر. The kind of reactions I get from my students when I explain to them that بسطن الدعيني معناتها they're losing their hearing permanently in a certain frequency. يعني it's just it's funny to see their shock.
Very interesting. We're all losing our hearing without knowing.
I'll wrap it up the way I know how. There's a few things you said during the discussion that stick with me. You referenced the ability to look at a painting and see expression or even poetry and find constructive use in language. That kind of artistic expression, I think, is so valuable, and it's a shared experience. It extends, obviously, to more than just those. Music, for the hearing community, is one of those shared experiences. But what you're doing and the way you do it is in itself a shared experience, because I'm actually watching every movement you're making. And I've heard people tell me something, which I don't know how true it is. They said you have a voice that's meant for podcasting. I don't know what that means. But let's just assume they're right. You have the most natural, visual, physical expressions I've seen in a very long time. And I hope you continue to do what you're doing. You should be very proud of what you're doing. And I know your parents are proud of you as well. This is one of the most enriching discussions I've had, and I really owe it to the audience in particular for joining tonight and being here. So thanks to you, and thanks to your parents for creating Naila, and thanks to everyone who joined tonight. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll emphasize, Sign with Naila, is that right? Or is it signing with Naila?
Sign with Naila.
Thank you. On Instagram, follow her. Check out her courses. Catch her at cafes, teaching staff how to do this. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing, Naila. You're terrific at it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for... I have to say that... And this is your sign, because I caught deaf people using. Your sign is, wow. You cannot see your sign.
Wait. It comes back in one
Okay,
second.
let's wait.
Wait, 5 seconds. Hold on.
This is like so that you'd get excited.
Okay, yeah.
What's
The
your
build
sign?
up.
What's
The
your
build
sign?
up. Gemini. No, that's not a
No.
sign.
Oh my God.
I know. Yeah.
Good pun.
Good pun.
Good
What,
pun.
you think it'll come back? I think so.
Yeah.
Let's count to 5. Hey, this is still
But
capturing.
can you? But the microphones are off, no?
No, it's
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Hey,
Okay,
we
yeah,
go.
we're back.
Perfect.
So the sign for his name, actually, and I saw deaf people using it, which is like this, Roni, because of your because of your beard. Okay, so my dad is adding. Actually, it's not only that; it's that and the ponytail. So that's like Roni. So this is your sign. You can use it. Go ahead. This is your the gift from the deaf community.
So
I wanted to say something and I forgot.
I'll give you time to. I'll give you a few seconds to.
Oh no! Okay, yeah, I remembered.
But wait. I want to add one more thing. Then you do it.
Yes, add one more thing.
I thought this would be my sign. Turns out it's that and
Okay,
that.
no, yeah,
Okay.
I think that's
Yeah, that's
this
better.
is.
Okay. I'll lose weight.
But yes, you will
Yeah.
you will lose weight, and,
And
then
keep
this
that,
would
yeah,
be always there.
Yeah,
He's
everyone-
saying a lot of people have really big bellies, but like having having this mustache and
The hair.
the combination, this is like special for you. So I want to say that Roni put so much effort asking me, how can we make this this episode accessible, and what do I and the deaf people need? And also the people who are working here in the coffee shop, they messaged me before asking me if I can teach them a few signs before the deaf people come in so that they can make this space accessible. And I want to say that this is beautiful. And thank you, because really, like, personal initiatives really like make a big difference. It's not organizations sometimes, but like it's one person thinking, how can I make what I'm doing right now more accessible? This is what changes. I want to say the world without sounding cheesy, but this is what changes the world. Yeah.
You're a gifted communicator, and you're so natural and wonderful. And all I can say is, don't stop what you're doing. So thanks again to everyone. Thank you, Naila.
Thanks for listening and watching. And a friendly reminder to support this podcast by contributing through Patreon or PayPal. All links are in the details box. Until next time, I'm Rani Shatah, and this is the Beirut Banyan.